Hi everyone, I'm so excited to present to you another installation in our Global Art Connection series. This one is all about Ming Vases. The purpose of this video is to give you an overview of how to set up the unit so that once you start it with your kiddos, you can hit the ground running. So let's dive right in. This one is organized into 3 distinct sessions, ideally 40 to 45 minutes each. If you need to modify that a little bit to meet your needs, you should be able to. In session 1, you're going to be presenting a digital storybook that really aims to give kids a sense of what is the deal with Ming Vases. Now, when we say Ming Vases, what we're really referring to in this particular case is porcelain, blue and white porcelain from the Ming Dynasty in China. Now, the whole purpose of the digital storybook is to really give kids a sense of why is this stuff worth knowing about? What's so important? What makes it special? So I think the digital storybook does a good job of that. It's complex, and I really worked hard to make it super kid-friendly, but I found that older kids seem to eat it up too. They love it because it's really rich in connections to history and geography and that kind of thing. So take a look, and if you feel like you want to simplify things a little bit for your little guys, you can. But I find that my 2nd and 3rd graders love this stuff and keep coming back for more. So in the digital storybook, I do want to point out there is a quick link to a quick short, like it's under 2 minutes, video on YouTube that shows the process of kaolin clay, which is the clay used to create porcelain, kind of being refined and transforming into porcelain. It's a fascinating video and I love it. I love the length of it. I love the narration, all of it. I did a lot of digging and searching, and most comparable video content about this particular type of vase is they're much longer videos, which just doesn't work for little guys. So I love that this one is short. There's one catch. In the video, it shows a guy with a cigarette. It's very short. It's very short. Like they just kind of pan by while he has a cigarette. Then he doesn't have a cigarette in his hand or mouth for the rest of the video. I just wish he didn't have that cigarette. I do choose to still show this to my kiddos, and I will kind of make a point to mention it at the beginning, and I kind of just brush it off of like, can you believe this guy? It's very dated or whatever. But you know your student population, you know your administrators, you know your kiddos' parents. If you feel like, I encourage you to preview the video, and if you feel like, no, I'm not showing that in my classroom, then skip it. It's kind of just an enrichment video to give a little visual to the kids, but it is not essential to the digital storybook to play that video. So use your best judgment. Now, once you get to the end of the digital storybook, you are going to have kids doing kind of a little bit of a formal look at some vocabulary words relating to vessels. So you're having them look at the words like the lip, the neck, the shoulder, the body of the vessel. You're also having them make some connections to vessels that might be in their house, because you want to make that personal connection. What's my connection to these vases? If they don't have access to porcelain in their lives, you want to help them understand, well, these are actually very similar in many ways to a coffee mug or, a plastic or glass vase that you might have in your house, a glass pitcher or a plastic pitcher in their fridge or whatever. So you're giving them a chance to kind of make some connections and maybe listen to other kids in the class make some connections to vases. Now, then you're going to dive right into this studio project. And for session 1, the studio project has kids getting some construction paper and gluing it together like this. You got one small piece, one tall piece. This is going to be a table. This is going to be the wall. And then they are cutting out a vase shape to apply. That literally will get you to the end of session 1. There's a whole situation, a whole process, sequence of steps to get this thing cut. And you'll be able to see it in the slideshow, but I just want you to be aware that you're gonna need to access this, which is in this resource. It's a stencil printout, and I tried really hard to get this all on one page to make it as efficient as possible for printing, as far as ink goes and paper and all that. But basically, you gotta cut each of these stencils out. There's 6 of them on one page. And when you cut them out, they're, it's like this. You're cutting out half of a vase. Oops, that one's upside down. They're labeled by letters, and in the slideshow, they'll be able to see, okay, if I use the A stencil, what is that going to look like once it's in a whole vessel form? So it kind of takes out the mystery on that part. But the slideshow will walk them through step by step how to use that stencil to create a full symmetrical vase. There is a printout of that step-by-step process. I tend to show the kids on the screen, like on my smart board. Then I physically demonstrate it also. And then I print these out and put them at the tables. I find if I go for that kind of trifecta, my success rate skyrockets. When you rush through it, you get a lot of kids who do it backwards, then with broken vases and feeling just discouraged and wasting a lot of watercolor paper. So take the time to really make sure they understand that process. Kids as young as second grade can handle this sequence of steps, and they'll feel really proud and kind of wowed at the end that it worked. But you got to take a second and really teach them how to do it. Now, they glue everything together, and that brings you to the end of session 1. Now, in session 2, you are going to kick off with a quick close-up look at the patterns on the vases. Now, obviously, there's an unlimited amount of patterns on Ming, vases. There's so many. So you're showing them a close-up of a couple close-ups, and then you're going to show them a close-up of some flowers that are also native to China, because both of those are intended to inspire the remainder of the work in the studio project, which is what session 2 is really all about. They are going to be doing a lot of studio work in session 2. Their goal is to get the whole project finished by the end of the session. Now, that's pretty ambitious, and if it doesn't work out, you might have some kiddos who need to carry their work over into session 3. You should have time in session 3 to let them do that if necessary. But you're going to show, I'm just trying to see if I can find this reference, like some graphic examples of the patterns that are in the, some vases, just for inspiration. You'll show it to them on the screen, but of course I made a printout that you could also have at tables. Now, the idea with this is inspiration. You don't want kids going to their seat and saying, okay, I need to make an exact replica of this dragon on my vase. They're going to struggle with that. It's hard. This is for inspiration. So they can look at this to kind of get the essence of what does a dragon's, mouth look like, or what does their tail look like. But the truth is, they're an artist. They can use their imagination and come up with it. And they'll feel, more proud if it's their own unique work, and your success rate will go way up because there's no right or wrong answer. But there's examples of butterflies and flowers and really cool symbols and vines and waves and clouds, and this is all just for inspiration. So if you have kiddos who are feeling a little apprehensive about just diving right in with paint on theirs, we also have some practice sheets. So every style of stencil that is included in this resource, I also have a practice sheet available. And the practice sheet is so simple, it just looks like this. So the idea is you would cut this in half. There's a whole bunch of them, depending on which stencil the kiddos choose. But you would, each printout has 2 practice sheets on it for different styles. You would hand the kiddo, if they want it, a practice sheet, and then they can sit there with a pencil and kind of sketch their idea first if they feel more comfortable doing that. Now, I want to warn you, every time I make practicing an option, it's a huge time suck. So if you're really trying to stick with the timeline here and get this thing done by the end of session 2, I would either A, don't mention practicing, or B, set up a timer so that you're saying, okay, I'm giving you 5 minutes to test out a dragon drawing or a flower drawing, but then I really need everybody to move on. So you're going to have them using a small brush. I recommend a size 2 brush so they can really get in some detailed work on their vases. And the slideshow kind of guides them through how to break their vessel up into sections, and just enough guidance to make it feel like, okay, I think I could actually do this. But open-ended enough that they're walking away feeling like, this is my unique design. I'm the artist here. You don't want anyone feeling like they need to make a replica of what they see on the screen. You don't want all the projects to look the exact same at the end. They'll feel much stronger connection to the process if they're putting their own unique, vision into it. So they're going to use, I like to offer blue liquid watercolor paints, because I found that if I put out my normal go-to pans, like a Crayola 16 pan or whatever, with all these kids kind of gunning for that blue, it's not long before your trays have every color available except blue, which is the only color they need for this project. So that's why I like to go with a liquid watercolor, but you could also use a slightly watered down tempera paint, dark blue or acrylic. You could even have them do this whole project with markers. Dark blue markers, or blue Crayola markers even are pretty close in tone to cobalt, which is what they're aiming for. Now, Once they get the pattern on their vessels, it dries pretty quickly, and you're gonna have them then move on to adding their blossoms, their branches with blossoms on them. So they're gonna use a Sharpie marker or even any kind of black marker to draw these 3 to 5 branches, stems coming up out of that vase. There is I don't have a printable connected to that, but there is a real simple visual in the slideshow that usually is enough to help them kind of get the gist of it if they don't already know how they want to make their branch. And then that part takes just less than a minute. I mean, it's very quick. And then you're going to hand them tempera paint. Now, you can offer a wide variety of colors. You can narrow it down so they only have 2 or 3 choices. That part's up to you. I typically give them a few choices, but they use a bigger paintbrush to add blossoms. This guy is more like this one's a 6. You go 6, you could go up to 12, I would say, on your brush size. I've even had them use their finger. I've had them use Q-tips. How they add that paint is pretty flexible, but I have them go with their darkest color first. So in this case, it was the pink color, and they add a pink dab to the end of every twig or branch, and then they add a white one, and then they add a green one, and then they can go in and fill in a couple more if they feel like it. Here's an example. If you offer yellow, white, and green, I usually pick a color and then white and green, and some of the colors mix together with that white, and you get a little variation. And it's just a dab. It's not, any particular challenging technique relating to those blossoms. That's what I like about the blossoms, is because even when you look at the pictures of them, they're really quite simple. But if you have kids who are feeling ambitious and they're just determined to put daisies and roses and tulips and all kinds of other flowers, I don't get in their way. If they want to do that, I let them have at it. And the outcomes are usually incredibly, whimsical and just delightful. So, you can kind of decide if you want to make room for that in your group or not. Now, once they get to the end of that, they are done with the studio project. And in a perfect world, that happens right at the end of session 2. But like I said, if it needs to carry over into session 3, so be it. The session 3 lineup really has kids looking at a couple fun facts. There's some cool fun facts, but then they're going to do a lesson review, and I put in my own lesson review there to share with you. But if you want to customize that, there's some blank slides where you can customize it. Then you're going to have them do the art show, where they spread out all their finished pieces on a table or on the floor, form a circle around them, and really just have a good old-fashioned critique. You're trying to get the kids used to the idea of talking about art. Talking about art is an invaluable skill. Receiving feedback, giving feedback, these are the skills that ultimately carry over into every other learning and professional experience they will have in their futures. So don't brush off this part of the lesson. This is a big one. You want to model using the vocabulary words that were introduced in the digital storybook, and you really want to kind of guide them through some ways of talking to each other about the really cool things that are happening in their projects. And there will be some cool things happening, so you shouldn't be short on things to discuss. Now, I put some guided questions for that art show. If you feel inclined to follow them, go for it. If you want to let that conversation flow organically, that works too. Now, there's a self-assessment provided in session 3. It looks like this guy. You can print this out and have each kid fill it out independently. You could show it up on your smartboard and kind of go through it as a whole group. There are 4 indicators for kids to rate themselves on. The first one is all about, how did I cut out that vase? Did I use the stencil in a way that made a vase that I feel good about? The second one is all about how they painted their vase. So did I use that blue paint in a way that shows I was clearly trying to include patterns and motifs? The third one is all about the flowers. How did I do on my flowers? Do they look cool? Am I proud of them? And then the last one, of course, is about using materials carefully and, trying your best. So effort, craftsmanship, that kind of thing. There's a spot for teacher comments. If you do print this out, this is a great opportunity to give kids individual feedback. It can be a little time consuming, but if you've got a small group of kids and you feel inclined, this is an awesome paper to kind of have kids finish and then paper clip it to their finished project when you send it home, because I think it helps their parents or whoever is looking at their backpack when they get home, kind of get a sense of what they were doing in art class and what this unit's all about, and sort of helps them have a conversation with the kiddos about what they created. So there are a couple early finisher suggestions. If you have kids flying through this, I don't typically have kids flying through it. I have kids running out of time on this one. But if you have some kids that went really fast, I suggest having a bunch of these empty sheets on deck, and encourage anyone who gets done early to pick one that is not the one that they used in their project, and just practice, you know, adding different details this time. I have kiddos who ask me for these on free draw days because it's sort of adjacent to a coloring book activity, but it has them really filling out the work. So that's one suggestion. Another one is a literacy connection to a book. It's from 1995. Someone gave it to me when my kids were little, and it's such a sweet little book. But I feel like it connects to this unit. Not in a literal way, but like the title is The Princess, the Mud Pies, and the Dragon. And it has this little girl who is working with mud and she's shaping it. So there's a connection to the idea of working with pottery. But then this dragon comes along, and, you know, because you're a lot of kids, I find, especially, you know, second and third graders, they want to incorporate a dragon into their design. So they tend to appreciate the connection to the dragon in this story, and like looking at how this artist illustrated their dragon. It's a book that you can get on Amazon. You might be able to find it in a local library, but there's one read aloud I was able to locate on YouTube if you want to take advantage of that, if you don't have access to the book yourself. It's out there. Anyway, and that will bring you to the end of this unit. So I hope that you feel inspired to give this one a shot. I hope your kids have fun with it. I would love to see pictures if you do decide to give it a try. If you have any questions, of course, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, that's it for this one. Thanks for listening.